Welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in John chapter 1. Verse 16 and 17, actually 17, we're kind of focusing on because it makes a bold dividing line, so bold that even Christians stumble over today. And it says that the law came through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And I want to kind of drive that point home. And the reason why I say that because the law of Moses, through the law of Moses, um, the foundation of our morality, our right and wrong, that this is really where we get it. God spells it out. However, understand that it was spelled out for Israel through the law that they had to keep. And basically the law was given so that to really kind of show us how depraved we are. And so John makes this statement that the law was given through Moses. And as we move through the book of John, the Gospel of John, and as we even kind of got a little taste of the encounter with Nicodemus, how Nicodemus basically said, "Oh, you're a great teacher, man," but that's not what it should seem. But this was a man of the law, an expert in the law, who taught the law, who burdened the people with the law. And even today, most denominations burden people with works, see, good deeds, holy living, that you have to do these things to be justified by God. And that's the false teaching. That is the bondage that has held Christians captive, even to this day. Every denominations teach this. And I wanted to kind of, let's go back to this. Uh, um, Verse 17, he says again, "For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." Now, I want to go to Galatians because there's two verses I want to show about the law. In other words, and again, so when we say the law, we're talking about righteous living, good works, good deeds. That if you think that you're going to be saved by doing good works, then what I'm going to give you now is this is what God's standard for this. In other words, if you say I'm going to do good works in order to be right, in order for God to justify me. So that if that's what you're going to say, let's hear from God. See, that let's hear from God what he thinks now. This is what his standard is going to be. Galatians chapter 3, verse 10, he says, "For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse, because it is written, everyone who does not continue doing everything written in the book of the law is cursed." Now notice, you have to continue with all. Okay? Let's look at James again. I read James last time, but let's read it again. James chapter 1 and verse number, why do I always miss this here? I just had it. I just had it. What the heck? James, yes, chapter 1, isn't it? James chapter 1. Or is it chapter 2? Okay, chapter 2. Okay, that's why. All right. James chapter 2, and then verse 10. He says, for whoever keeps the entire law, yet fails in one point, is guilty of breaking all. Now, get that. So I'm showing you now God's perspective. If you persist and say, I have to, and I get into these debates all the time with people who will say that I have to obey the law. I get into this all the time when people say, I have to obey the law. I have to do good works. And actually, and they will use James right here, the very kind of the faith without works. And they would say, well, see, the Bible tells us James said you got faith without works is dead. And then I will say to them, well, what works do you have to do to be right with God? And by the way, just since I opened this can of beans right here, this is what they quote. Verse 23, so the scriptures were fulfilled that says Abraham believed God and it was credited to him for righteousness and he was called the friend of God. You see that a man is justified by works and not by faith alone. Now again, the reason why we have to kind of look at James' language. Okay, that's all I'm saying, the kind of language. When he said that a man is justified by works, James is not teaching but works. Because think about it. He just told us here in verse 10 that whoever keeps the entire law but fails in one point is guilty of breaking all. For he who says, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. So if you do not commit adultery but you murder, you are a lawbreaker. So if you're going to say that James is teaching that you have to, that works, you're justified by works, then also what James is saying, which he's not, is that you have to keep all of the law perfectly all of the time. That if you break any part of the law, any part of the law, you have broken the entire law. And let that sink in. Here's how God thinks about this. If you want to be right, if you want to be just by the law, from God's perspective, you have to keep it all. Look at what he says right here. If you break it at any point, and notice what he said, you broke the entire law. You just didn't, he said, when we take our driver's test, for example, as long as you pass 70 points, you can miss 30 and you're going to get your driver's license. Right? That's not how God's law works. If you break one, you fail all of the law. Let me show you. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 33. And this is going to be really, let's look at verse 12. Here we go. So Ezekiel chapter 12. Now by the way, I'm slicing out here just one verse. The entire verse is kind of wonderful here. But notice what he says here. Verse 12, Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 12 says, now, son of man, say to your people, the righteousness of the righteous person will not save him on the day of his transgression. Neither will the wicked of the wicked person cause him to stumble in the day he turns from his wickedness. The righteous person won't be able to survive by his righteousness on the day he sins. When I tell the righteous person that he will surely live, but he trusts in his righteousness and commits iniquity, then none of the righteousness will be remembered, and he will die in his sin because of the iniquity he has committed. Now this is kind of rough, right? But again, if you're saying, God, I'm going to obey the law, I'm going to be justified by good works, then God says, fine. Then let's say you live 100 years. I'm being hypothetical. You live 100 years, and 99 of those years you kept the law perfectly for 99 years. Notice what by here he said, now in that 99th year, you commit one sin. You've wiped out those 99 years. You've you've broken. They don't count. He said none of that will be remembered. The 99 years. Okay. So now with that, let's kind of go back to verse 17. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. So now we have some perspective here. That the law that was brought works. You cannot be justified by God. So Moses brought the law. And again, John is not indicting Moses. The indictment is on the sinfulness of man, the depravity of man. See, hypothetically, when I said if you live 99 years, well, first of all, that's a hypothetical because your depravity will not allow you. You cannot live that good in your depravity. You can't be that good in your depravity. And another thing that you have to realize is that you have to look at how God looks at sin. Remember, Adam only ate fruit. That's all he did. He didn't erect a golden calf and said, "This is what created me in the Garden of Eden." No, he ate fruit. So what we may consider the least of sin, to God, sin is sin. You broke the entire law. You broke it. Remember, and that's why you see when Jesus said that, Jesus, shocked. He's shocked when he said, you think, okay, if I commit adultery, right? You heard, don't commit adultery. But I say to you that if you look upon a woman to lust after her, you've committed adultery. Ouch. Ouch. Every man, right? See, God's perspective, his holiness, is a whole different ballgame. And we as sinful men cannot ever meet that. You deceive yourself by saying that you do. You think, and you become hypocrites too. That's what the Pharisees, we're going to see this. The Pharisees, who were experts in the law, became hypocrites. So the law was given through Moses. That worked. But then he says, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. That's the answer. That's the salvation. This grace that came through Jesus Christ. That's the salvation. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. So there's the dividing line. Moses gave you the law. Moses gave death. Moses gave condemnation. But Jesus gave grace. And Jesus gave truth. And grace is God's favor, unmerited favor. He does it, that the salvation that comes through Jesus Christ, God, you don't earn it. It's given through Jesus Christ. So no one, he says, for the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. That's the salvation. That's the freedom. And if you persist on good works, it's a road of condemnation. That's all it is. It's a road of condemnation. You condemn yourself. And then you become a hypocrite by deceiving, saying, oh, I'm doing good works. But see, the problem with that, you're not looking at sin for how God would like it. I mean, not like it. I had a thought kind of cram in my head right here, but I was going to make the illustration that if you wanted to make me a dish, you should know what I like. But I sometimes, for some reason, people do this all the time, that people will make you something and then say, you're going to like it. Like, here's an example. I don't like any spicy food. None. Zero. When I say zero, no hot spicy, I should say, hot spicy food. I do not want a Smith. No, done. And yet, I can't tell you how many people will say, "But you're gonna like this. It's only a little bit." I said none. And people always try to give me some spicy food. Don't, none. And they would say, "Hey, give it to," and then when I eat it, I go, "No, okay, it's spicy. I don't like it." Okay, I mean, so we're not looking at sin through God's eyes, and that's what He told you. Little sin, see, even the little one. If you lust after a woman, right? That wait a minute, how can you escape that? You can't escape it. However, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. That's the separation. That's the divide. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Now watch this, verse 18. No one has seen God, the one and only Son, the one who is at the Father's side. He has revealed him. So here's the thing. Remember, we go all the way back to verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then we see the Word took upon flesh. So what was the Word doing? Revealing the Father. So the Son came to reveal the Father. But what did He reveal? What did the Son reveal about the Father? Grace and truth. Not the law, but grace and truth. In other words, Jesus' whole mission was to reveal the nature of the Father, to reveal the will of God. What did He reveal? Grace and truth. That salvation came through the act of God's grace. And let me just throw in, let me show you this gem while we're here. I love reading this verse. Colossians 1, verse 21. He says, once you were alienated and hostile in your minds because of your evil actions. But now He, meaning Jesus, has reconciled you by His physical body through His death. You can stop right there. Not your good works, not anything done in your body. God doesn't look at your body and go, "Oh, that's holy. Oh, she don't wear pants, jewelry, or makeup. Oh, she dressed impeccable." And He has reconciled you in His physical body through His death. Now get this, to present you holy and faultless and blameless before Him. The King James says, in His sight. See, in His sight. So we're presented blameless before God. God looks at us through what Jesus did. Grace and truth. See, Moses brought the law. Moses brought works. Moses brought condemnation because you can't keep the law of Moses. But Jesus brought grace and truth. So no one has seen God, but when you see Jesus, what He is revealing, the nature of God, the will of God, that's what we saw. The Word became flesh, and we beheld His glory. The glory as the one and only Son of God. So that's what the revelation is. That's what we see. If you look at Jesus, and even now we see this through the gospel. We walk through Jesus' eyes. We walk through his life on earth. And if your takeaway is, I got to go do a bunch of works, you're seeing the wrong Jesus. You're seeing the wrong Jesus. No one has seen God but the one and only Son of the Father, who the Son is at the right side of the Father. He has revealed Him. So these first 18 verses kind of give us the prelude to what we're going to be studying in the Gospel of John. I may add the rest of the Gospels as well. And so, okay, we'll get to it next time. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to VP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below.